Family ties, woven in childhood with threads of love and security, can sometimes prove fragile, undone by knots of misunderstanding, wounded pride, and unmet expectations. For Evelyn, however, those ties were never particularly strong or comforting. Born into a family of modest means, but burdened with an inordinate arrogance and a narrow view of success, Evelyn always felt like an outsider, a dissonant note in the predictable melody her parents expected her to sing. From an early age, Evelyn demonstrated a stubborn independence and an inclination to forge her own paths, qualities that were interpreted by her parents not as signs of a strong and promising personality, but as pure rebelliousness and an obstinate refusal to follow their wise guidance. Her parents, trapped in a cycle of growing debt, broken promises, and an unwavering conviction of their own intellectual superiority, despite evidence to the contrary, harbored for Evelyn a pre-molded destiny, a safe and uninspired path that inevitably passed through a respectable profession and an advantageous marriage. Evelyn, however, possessed an inquisitive mind and an adventurous spirit that impelled her to question the status quo and seek her own horizons, while her parents pressured her to follow in the footsteps of her successful cousins, a bored accountant and a frustrated elementary school teacher. Evelyn dreamed of a vaster world full of possibilities, a world where her ideas, however mediocre her parents considered them, could flourish and bear fruit. Arguments at home were frequent and heated. Evelyn's parents did not miss the opportunity to belittle her ambitions, labeling her plans as childish fantasies and insisting that she put her feet on the ground and embrace mediocrity as a safe path to happiness. At every attempt by Evelyn to express her own opinions or defend her dreams, she was met with sarcasm, condescension, and the relentless accusation of being ungrateful and headstrong. Pride, a striking characteristic of Evelyn's parents' personality, prevented them from recognizing any value in her ideas. For them, only what fit into their limited universe of possibilities was worthy of consideration. Evelyn's creativity and originality were seen as stubbornness and a direct affront to their parental authority. The situation at home became unsustainable over the years. At 18, Evelyn already felt suffocated by the oppressive atmosphere and the constant feeling of not being accepted by those who should love her unconditionally. She longed for freedom, for a space where she could be herself without having to bow to her parents' petty expectations. The breaking point occurred on a cold autumn night. Evelyn, excited, shared with her parents the news that she had been accepted into an exchange program to study business at a small, innovative company on the other side of the country. She was radiant with the opportunity to learn from experienced professionals and put her own ideas into practice. Her parents' reaction was anything but what she expected. Instead of joy and support, Evelyn was met with an overwhelming fury. Her parents accused her of being selfish, irresponsible, and of throwing her life away by pursuing passing illusions. The exchange program, which for Evelyn represented a door to the future, was labeled by her parents as yet another proof of her failure to follow the correct path. The argument intensified, culminating in shouts and painful accusations. Evelyn's mother, her face red with anger, screamed words that cut Evelyn's heart like sharp blades. "You've always been a failure, Evelyn. You'll never be anyone if you keep going with these stupid ideas. Get out. We don't want you in this house anymore." Evelyn's father, usually more reserved, endorsed his wife's words with a cold and distant look, as if Evelyn were a stranger who had invaded their home. At that moment, the young woman realized, with painful clarity, that there was no longer a place for her in that house, that the love and support she so longed for would never come from her parents. With her heart in pieces and tears streaming down her face, Evelyn did as she was told. That same night, at 19, she left the house where she had grown up, taking with her only a battered suitcase with some clothes and the firm determination to prove to her parents and to herself that they were wrong about her, while her parents continued to live in their bubble of debt, broken promises, and empty arrogance. Evelyn faced the harsh reality of life on her own. The first few months were the most difficult. Without money, without friends, and without a place to live, she experienced cruel hunger, the cutting cold of homeless nights, and the humiliation of having to ask strangers for help. However, Evelyn possessed admirable resilience and unwavering determination. She refused to be defined by her parents' harsh words and was determined to build a better life for herself. She accepted any job she could find, cleaning houses, working as a waitress, and even handing out flyers on the cold streets of New York. Despite the difficulties, Evelyn never gave up on her dreams. She continued to study at night, taking advantage of every spare minute to learn about business and entrepreneurship. Her sharp mind and impeccable work ethic soon caught the attention of a small businessman who was struggling to keep his company afloat. The company, specializing in technology, was considered a failure by many, but Evelyn saw untapped potential in it. She offered to work for free for the first few months, convinced that she could help turn the business around. Her innovative vision, her contagious energy, and her ability to solve problems creatively soon began to yield results. Within a few years, thanks to Evelyn's hard work and relentless dedication, the small company began to thrive. Her visionary leadership and her ability to make tough decisions transformed the business into a profitable and successful enterprise. Evelyn quickly rose through the company ranks, becoming a partner and eventually the chief executive. Years passed since Evelyn had been kicked out of her house. In that time, she had built a business empire, earning respect and admiration in the business world. She never forgot her parents' harsh words, but instead of resentment, she held in her heart the determination to prove that she was capable of achieving success on her own merits. One day, Evelyn decided it was time to go home, not out of longing or a desire for reconciliation, but out of a deep need to confront the past and show her parents what she had become. Without their help, despite their cruel words and their lack of faith, chapter to the night Evelyn closed the door of her family home behind her, carrying a suitcase filled with modest clothes and a heart laden with pain and determination, marked the beginning of an arduous and solitary journey. At 19, fresh out of the protection, albeit cold and critical, of her childhood home, Evelyn found herself confronted with the harsh reality of a world that seemed to have no place for a young woman without resources, without support, and marked by family rejection. The first few weeks were a constant test of her resilience. Without money to rent a room, Evelyn resorted to temporary shelters and the occasional couch of friends, grateful for any roof that offered protection from the cutting cold of the night and the insecurity of the streets. Hunger became a frequent companion, and Evelyn learned to value each meal, however simple, as a luxury. Pride, ironically, which her parents so criticized in her ambitions, became an unexpected shield in her moments of greatest vulnerability. Evelyn refused to succumb to despair, clinging to the conviction that she was capable of building a better life for herself, far from the toxic influence of her family. At every look of pity, every condescending offer of help, Evelyn held her head high and moved forward, fueled by a stubborn determination to prove her worth. The search for employment proved an even greater challenge. Without relevant professional experience and with an almost empty resume, Evelyn faced countless rejections. Doors seemed to close at every attempt, and frustration threatened to undermine her motivation. However, she persisted, distributing resumes in stores, restaurants, and businesses, accepting any vacancy that offered her the opportunity to earn some money to survive. Her first steady job was as a clerk in a busy diner downtown. The long hours, constant pressure, and minimum wage were exhausting, but Evelyn seized the opportunity with all her might. She learned quickly, was efficient, and demonstrated impeccable work ethic, drawing the attention of her colleagues and her manager. Even with the job, life was not easy. Evelyn shared a small room with other young women in precarious conditions, and every penny was carefully counted to ensure she had enough to eat and pay her basic expenses. But for the first time in her adult life, Evelyn felt a tenuous sense of independence and control over her own destiny. In her spare time, Evelyn continued to study, taking online courses and reading books on business and entrepreneurship. She dreamed of having her own business someday, of creating something from scratch and showing her parents what she was capable of. Her mind buzzed with ideas, and she noted every thought, every observation, hoping that one day they could become reality. It was during one of these online searches for opportunities that Evelyn came across an intriguing ad. A small technology company, specializing in management software for small businesses, was looking for an administrative assistant with skills in digital marketing. The company, called Techstart, seemed to be struggling to take off, with little visibility and a business model that needed revamping. Despite the lack of specific experience in the technology field, Evelyn felt inexplicably drawn to the opportunity she saw in that nascent business and untapped potential, fertile ground where her innovative ideas could flourish. Without hesitation, Evelyn prepared a resume highlighting her transferable skills, her work ethic, and her passion for learning, and sent it, along with an enthusiastic cover letter, to Techstart. To her surprise, Evelyn was called for an interview. Techstart's CEO, a young and visionary man named Daniel, was impressed by the young woman's intelligence, energy, and determination. He recognized in Evelyn a potential that went beyond her resume and decided to give her a chance, offering her a modest salary but with the promise of great opportunities for growth. Evelyn seized the opportunity with all her might. She dedicated herself body and soul to Techstart, quickly learning about the technology market, management software, and digital marketing strategies. Her fresh ideas and innovative approach soon began to yield results. She implemented creative and effective online marketing campaigns, optimized the company's internal processes, and helped attract new customers. In a short time, Techstart began to gain recognition in the market. The number of customers grew exponentially, revenue increased, and the company became a success story in the promising scenario of technology startups. Evelyn, thanks to her hard work and strategic vision, quickly rose through the company ranks, becoming a marketing manager, operations director, and finally a minority partner. Years passed since Evelyn had left her parents' house. In that time, she had become a successful professional, respected in the business world and financially independent. She had never contacted her family, preferring to focus on building her own life, proving to herself that she was capable of achieving success on her own merits. However, the memory of her parents' harsh words and the bitter rejection still remained in her memory, like a persistent shadow on her journey. One day, Evelyn found herself facing an important decision. Techstart had received an acquisition proposal from a large technology company. For a considerable amount, Evelyn, as a majority partner, would have a multi-million-dollar stake in the deal. That was the moment she had longed for, the concrete proof that her dreams were not just passing illusions, as her parents used to say. And then, a bold idea sprang into her mind: go back home and show her parents what she had achieved. Without their help, despite their cruel words and their lack of faith, the time for reckoning had arrived. Approaching her old family home, Evelyn felt a wave of conflicting emotions. There was the cold satisfaction of knowing she had proven her worth, the slight tremor of anticipation for the inevitable confrontation, and a lingering sadness for that family who never knew how to recognize her. The luxury car she drove, a gift to herself after the business deal went through, parked silently in the driveway of the modest residence that had once been her home. Wearing an elegant haute couture suit that accentuated her confident posture, Evelyn stepped out of the car with a dignity her parents had never attributed to her. A team of professionals accompanied her in separate cars, ready to assist in demonstrating her achievement. Upon ringing the doorbell, the sound echoed through the house, carrying a weight that went beyond its simple vibration. The door was opened by her mother, whose face, marked by time and constant financial worries, revealed a hesitant surprise upon recognizing the slender and confident figure standing on the threshold. "Evelyn?" she asked, her voice filled with thinly veiled disbelief. "Yes, Mother, it's me," Evelyn replied, her voice calm and firm, without a trace of the fragility of the young woman who had been kicked out years ago. Her father soon joined her mother at the door, and the same expression of shock and confusion spread across his face. They invited her in, still not fully understanding the unexpected presence of the daughter they had banished. The house seemed smaller than Evelyn remembered, and the atmosphere charged with old tensions still hung in the air. Her parents led her to the living room, where they sat on their worn sofas. Observing Evelyn with cautious curiosity, "To what do we owe your visit, Evelyn?" asked her father, his tone trying to sound casual but with a hint of defensiveness. "I came to show you that you were wrong," Evelyn replied, her gaze sweeping across the room with an almost distant serenity. "You told me I would never be anyone for not following your mediocre ideas. I came to show you what I have become without your help." A heavy silence settled in the room. Evelyn's parents exchanged nervous glances, unsure how to react to that direct and unexpected statement. At that moment, one of Evelyn's assistants entered the room, carrying an elegant box. Evelyn took the box and placed it on the coffee table, opening it slowly, revealing an important-looking contract. "This is the sales contract for Techstart," Evelyn said, her voice remaining calm. "The company you said had no future. It was valued at $15 million. Evelyn paused, watching the disbelief settle on her parents' faces. "This is my gift to you, from the daughter you said wasn't worth anything." Shock paralyzed her parents. They stared at the contract as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The arrogance that had always characterized them seemed to have evaporated, replaced by stunned bewilderment. Her mother tried to regain her composure, but her voice wavered. This can't be true. You've always been so stubborn." "Stubborn or determined," Evelyn corrected, without raising her voice. "The difference between success and failure often lies in the persistence to believe in your own ideas, even when no one else does." Her father tried to intervene, his wounded pride still trying to manifest itself. "We only wanted what was best for you, Evelyn. We wanted you to have a secure life. Secure like the life you've always had, drowning in debt and empty promises," Evelyn retorted, the tone of her voice still calm but filled with unwavering firmness. "I found my own security, building something of value with my own effort." Evelyn offered the open contract to her parents, a final gesture laden with meaning. "The company is yours. I hope you know how to make good use of it." Without waiting for a response, Evelyn stood up. Her assistants followed her in silence. She turned to her parents one last time, her eyes conveying a complex mixture of sadness and liberation. "Goodbye," she said simply, before heading for the door. Upon leaving the house, Evelyn took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air of freedom fill her lungs. She got into her luxury car and started the engine, leaving behind the house, the past, and the bitterness of a rejection that had propelled her to go further than she ever imagined. She looked in the rearview mirror one last time, seeing her parents standing at the door, their figures small and silent, carrying the weight of their own choices. From that day on, Evelyn moved forward with her billionaire life, focused on her businesses and her future projects. That final gift was not an act of revenge, but rather the silent demonstration that she had freed herself from the past, leaving behind only the bitter silence of those who always thought they knew everything but never knew how to recognize the true potential of their own daughter. Evelyn's story was proof that true success often arises from adversity, and that rejection can, paradoxically, become the greatest driving force for achievement. And so, Evelyn's journey came to an end at that threshold. She sought not revenge, but rather the silent validation of her own resilience. Behind the wheel of her car, a tangible symbol of her independence, Evelyn left behind not only the house, but also the weight of a rejection that paradoxically propelled her to build a future her parents had never imagined. The contract on the table was not a gift, but the irrefutable proof that a person's worth lies in their ability to flourish despite the lack of support. Evelyn departed, not as a distant billionaire, but as someone who had finally broken free from the chains of the past, carrying with her the certainty that her success was her greatest victory, achieved solely through her own merits. The bitter silence that remained in the house was the only inheritance of those who, in their blindness, never knew how to recognize the brilliance of the daughter they had.